Okay, today's going to be a casserole. The turnip's already been frozen and diced, so that's how much there is as opposed to a hand. It's enough for two people. But actually there's going to be more than enough for two people. It's going to make 4 or 5 meals, this. Okay, what else I'm going to add? 2 sticks of celery. These aren't sticks, these are actual celery itself, so there's dirt on it, you have to wash it off. The end bit needs to be cut off, but other than that, the same as a stick of celery. Sticks of celery shouldn't be dirty. 2 sticks of celery would be fine. This is a small leek. It likely, you've got to chop off that end there. It likely wants cleaned inside as well. It doesn't look too bad, that, but they dig them up out of the ground, lay them out overnight, and then replant them again. So there's likely to be dirt inside. It needs to be washed. Carrot, reasonable sized carrot. Could use 2 different carrots, and I'm also going to use 2 onions. That's the onions I'm going to be using. They're not particularly large. They're going to be halved and halved again, so they're in quarters. That's going to be cut into small pieces, about the same sort of size as that, diced up. But that's more or less it. Now, depending on what you're going to use in casserole, first of all, tin of chopped tomatoes. I'm using those. It doesn't have to be those. It can be any chopped tomatoes. I've tried 3 different brands. They're all much the same. But chopped tomatoes, not plum. Now you're going to need a sauce for this. I'm going to use that. 400 millilitres. You could also use something like that. That's a pale stout. It's just as good. You can use tea if you want. Let your tea go cold for 500 millilitres of tea. Do the same if you're going to use a Bovril or a Oxo stock cube. They're all fine as long as you've got 400 or 500 millilitres of fluid. You're going to want some flour as well. About a tablespoonful of flour. I never add salt to my meal, so there's no salt in it, and I'll just pause it there. In a few moments you'll see it prepared. That's the celery cut. As you can see, the size of it. Those bits which were at the bottom, the white bits, I cut them the same length and then I just cut them in half. Got to make sure you get all the dirt out. That's it's just colouring. The dirt's been washed off of that on the tap. Now I'm going to do the carrots. That's the first cut on the carrots. They're just a rough size. Then I'm going to cut them down and then across. Okay, that's the next stage of them being cut. Now I'm going to work out how to dice them up properly. Okay, that's them all cut. The smallest bit just needs to be cut down and then half, that piece half. These bits have been cut along and then half. As it gets towards the end you cut it a bit thinner because, well actually that's not too bad because that's the middle. But on these they're cut into 4 and that's what they look like when they're on the side. So they're all roughly the same sort of size. You could pick one of those up and stick it next to that. There's not much difference, they'll cook all about the same time. Okay, that's the hard vegetables in there. About a tablespoonful of olive oil. You don't need the oil if you don't want to, they'll cook on their own juices. It's just to pre-cook them a bit. So it's got the carrot in there diced, the celery diced, and the turnip diced. They do take a little bit of time to soften up. If you just put them into the meal as they were, they would be kind of hard. That's okay if you want a crisp meal, but you don't really want that for this. This could either be a casserole or a stew. Difference between a casserole and a stew. Casserole gets done in the oven, baked all round. The stew gets done on top of the heat, so it burns a bit on the bottom. The casserole burns a bit on the top. They should taste more or less the same. There's no onion in there yet. It's going to cook for about 5 or so minutes. Then I'll put the onion in so it doesn't overcook. The leek doesn't need to be put into there because caramelising the onion will make it sweeter. Doing the same to the leek won't make any difference. It's kind of sweet anyway. But I'll probably put it in there to add on some flavour. Now what am I going to use for the Meat, I'm going to use that diced beef. I'm going to cut that as well because it's going to be too big. The last bit that's going to go in is going to be the leeks. They don't really need to go in. That's the sort of size I've dropped them down to. You need to check on the end. That looks okay. There's no dirt in that. But if there was dirt on it, you'd have to get rid of it. I cut them down half, and then you can split them apart and see if there's any dirt around there on the top. If there's not, you don't need to wash them again. If you do, certainly if there were bigger leaks, you would have to wash them. Okay, that's it simmering away now. I've actually turned the heat off. That's got everything in there I want. You could not put 2 onions in there, or not put the leek in there, or not put the carrots or the celery, or 1 stick of celery. It's entirely up to you how much you put in. This is going to make quite a large meal. It may overflow the casserole dish that I'm going to use, so I'll use the second one. I quite often make 2 casseroles at the same time because I know they're going to be good, and I just freeze them, and then that's what I eat for however long I need to eat it. That's now cooking away quite nicely. Okay, that's it in the casserole dish, steaming away quite nicely. Now I'm going to pour that into it, and then a tablespoon of flour. It can be plain or self-raising, it can be anything you want really, it's just flour. Then I'm going to add whatever seasoning I'm going to add, and at the same time I'm going to pour that in. That's the tomatoes and the flour sprinkled on top. Now I'm going to put on the sauce for it. Okay, that's the sauce or the stock added into it. As I said, in this case it's Guinness, 1 can of Guinness, 1 440 milliliter of Guinness. This is 500 milliliters, almost certainly. Yeah, 500 milliliters. So obviously if you add the other one, you've got a bit more water in there, or a bit more fluid in there. Now I'm going to stir that together. There we go, there's it all stirred together. Now I'm going to add however much beef I want. It's not likely how much is that I'm going to add the whole of this in. Half of it would be about how much I'll put in there. I may put in less. Doesn't want to come up to the top of the casserole dish, otherwise it'll boil over. But we'll see. Okay, that's about half of the beef out. See, they're not all the same size. That's a bit big, that's going to get cut in half. Most of them will get diced to about 1.5 centimetres, 2 centimetres cubed. Never cut them on a porous surface. This is glass, so when I wipe it down it's clean. If you use a wooden surface like that, you'll leave marks in there, you'll get your germs in there, you'll poison yourself. Okay, I made the start on the beef. That's the beef that's not cooked, that's cut rather. This is the beef that has been cubed to the size I want it to be. So you can see it's smaller, much smaller than that. Doesn't have to be smaller, it just makes it easier to cook. Now I put some olive oil in the frying pan. I'm going to sear this all over so it's sealed, then it's going to go in the pot. Okay, that's the meat cooking. It's going to be cooked until there's no red showing on it. It doesn't have to be brown like that, but that doesn't do any harm. But it doesn't want to be red like that. Once that's finally cooked, it will then go on top of the other meal. Okay, that's the beef added. I could have added some more, but you don't really want to put too much in there. I'm going to put a spice, some rosemary and some thyme. You can put anything you want really. At the moment there's nothing in there, there's no salt, there's no pepper, there's nothing in there other than the actual juices themselves, and some flour to make it all set a little bit. That'll now be cooked between 2–2.5 hours, depending on how much of this juice you want to get rid of. The more you cook it, the more it'll go away. I'm going to cook it with the lid on. Not going to have the lid off. You could also add dumplings to it if you want, but if you're adding dumplings you have to have a bit more fluid in it than that, because the dumplings will absorb the fluid. Okay, that is the spices that I'm actually going to put in. Basil, coriander, chives, thyme, rosemary. A bit more rosemary, don't need too much thyme. Probably no thyme at all actually. But that's it, there's about a teaspoon of those two. Just over a teaspoon of that and less than a teaspoon of that. And a half a teaspoon of that. So they're all just going to go in. Then they'll get stirred into place, and then they're going to get cooked. The oven's warming up now to 200 degrees, and it'll cook at that for a couple of hours while we see what's happening. Okay, I'm now going to make some dumplings for the stew. That's about 125-130 grams of a butter substitute. That's what I'm using. It can be butter, it can be any fromage, make a difference. And about 250 grams of self-raising flour. The flour is going to go into an empty bowl, and then the butter will get mixed into it. I actually didn't have 250 grams of self-raising, I only had about 100, so I've added a little bit of wholemeal. What I'm going to do is put the butter in like that, and I'm going to mix it in until it goes breadcrumby, and then I'll add a little bit more until it all goes breadcrumby. And then when that's done, I'll add a bit of water, then that's the dumplings made. Okay, that's what it looks like when it's all bound together. A bit like breadcrumbs. Now you're going to add a bit of water to that to bind it together, and then divide it into the size you want and put it into the casserole. The casserole has been going for approximately an hour now, so I'll be taking it out, putting these in. Okay, 4 tablespoons full of water, and it's kind of stodgy now. That's all it needs to be now. Bit of it sticking onto my fingers. I'm now going to get the casserole dish out, form it into balls, and put it in the dish. Okay, that's what it looks like after an hour. There might be enough fluid in there for the dumplings, there might not. I'll see when I put them in. I'm going to do 6. Okay, that's the dumplings put into there. All I've done is picked out what I thought was the 6 of the mixture and rolled it into a ball in the palm of my hands, dropped it in there, rinsed and repeated for them all. Now they need to be pushed in there. Okay, that's what it looks like after 2 hours. Starting to steam up the camera there. Now it needs to go back into the oven 20 minutes so that the top of it gets browned off. There you go, there's the finished product. It's looking a little bit dry, but there's still quite a lot of fluid in there, and it's red hot. I might take another photo of that once it's a bit cooled down. Here we go, that's what it looks like the next day. You can see 2 of the dumplings are missing. There's a little, can't really see it move there, but there's a little bit of water in there. You could add a little bit more fluid now. I can't find my Axo cubes to do that, so I've not done any. But that's what it looks like, and that's a very nice tasting meal. What I'll do now is have some more of that and bag the rest of it up and put it in the freezer.